Recently I was teaching a class about nervous system regulation, and two girls in the class said, "Whoa, wait a minute, we've just heard opposite from Mel Robins, that venting is non-productive." And I love that they had both read the same comment on her Instagram or wherever they got their information from. And I was like, great, let's talk about it. So this video is to talk about that specific idea of like venting, like something bad happened and I'm going to go to a friend and talk about all of it and let it all out, and the unproductivity of that, or how it can shift to a productive conversation. And in this class, let me rewind. I'm Cami. I am recently recovered from, oh my gosh, years of trauma resolution and health issues. And I have to teach some of it because I've just gathered so many resources in the last 13 years. I really encourage people to tell their stories and link how their stories can give them the next clue or the next step on their healing journey. During this class on regulating the nervous system, we were talking about activation, and activation happens to keep us safe. So activation can look like many different things. It can look like a startle response, like it can look like I'm going to run away and get out of here. It can look like I'm going to rush to the road and grab my toddler's hands and literally yank them out of the road because there's an approaching car. It can look like yelling. It can look like defensive, like defensiveness to put up a fight. It can look like surprise and wonder and tears coming out because we're so surprised. It can be crying. So activation is healthy. It's a dysregulating response to move us to safety. So self-protective response. And during this discussion that we were having, I was explaining how verbal ventilation can be part of the activation response, and then eventually it can lead to resolve. But guess what we do as adults? Children are really good at resolve, and they're really good at releasing through activation and then getting back to regulation. Most children are very good at this. But as adults, we somewhat have been trained to stay in this vortex of, I want to say victimhood. That might not resonate with some people, but this vortex of what venting would bring us. Like, you have to hear what my sister-in-law did, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, period. And it's non-productive. That specific type of verbal ventilation is not productive. Here's where it becomes productive. When we start to label how we actually feel, and how it makes us feel inside of our bodies. Like, oh, when she did that, it broke my heart. In some places. And you can actually feel something like a sensation or something beautiful, a warmth in your heart. Or it made me so angry I wanted to pull my hair out. And that is an activating response of like, we actually can feel the stimuli on the top of our head. Or, oh, my gut dropped when I saw that comment. That is actually something that's happening inside the body, so we can say, I just feel sick. It made me feel sick. There's a different response that's going to happen within the body, like when we label it that way. Like, we could have a gut reaction that's like, that was the right decision, and so I feel validated and by my body, and I feel inspired, right? Like, gut decisions can be, I feel sick, or my gut dropped, I'm overwhelmed, or I am inspired. I mean, there's so many different labels of feelings that's just three. But the the trick is the question is, how big is our vocabulary in association with how we feel? What a wonderful skill to learn as an adult. This week we moved. We moved homes we were in our previous home for 13 years, and we just moved a mile and a half. But something about leaving my home has triggered a fear response inside of me. And the first night I was sleeping in our new home, I woke up 3 times just like, I didn't leave it just right. I wanted to leave my previous home just right. Like the walls painted, the nail holes spackled, the baseboards sparkly white again, and not look like it had the wear and tear of 13 years with boys and children. And it was just such an odd sensation. Like, it definitely felt it in my chest, just like that wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, what is this feeling? And here's where, like, venting, if we're going to use the word venting, here's what it would look like if I would have woke up and started telling my husband about it. This is the story I would have told. Oh my gosh, I could not sleep last night. I just woke up over and over, and I'm just terrified that they're not going to like the house, and I didn't do enough, and I should have done more, and then they're like, they're going to think bad of me, and they're not, like, we're always going to be negative owners, sellers in their mind. But instead, like, because I understand the nervous system and understand how it's patterned and what's happening within it, I woke up in the middle of the night and I went, wow, this is a really isolating feeling, and I feel afraid. It, like, was a sensation inside the chest. And so many of our patterns are developed in early childhood, before we're 6 years old. And so, because I know so much of my history of my early childhood, and I felt it and I validated it with inside my own self, and this is inner work that I've done with narrative informed trauma care, which means, like, I've written stories and explored how it feels in my body, like written my story down. Because I understand my, like, early childhood story, I can resource some of that information. So I was like, okay, I feel afraid. Why would I feel afraid? Oh, I didn't leave everything perfectly. Why did I have to be a perfectionist in the past? Oh, because if I didn't do everything, I was afraid of not belonging, and I was afraid of being rejected, and I was afraid of being alone. Okay, so what is a feeling that I can label here? Instead of just wallowing in my fear and reciting the same, like, patterns of, I couldn't sleep, and I'm a terrible person because I did everything wrong, and guilt and da-da-da. Rather, I would label, oh, this is reminding me that if I don't do things perfectly, I don't belong. That's a really sad feeling. And it's an old feeling, but it's still a part of me. And so let me take this half hour that I'm awake in the middle of the night and honor this beautiful body that feels like she didn't belong. Within that concept, there's grief that comes up, loneliness and sadness. but also like this warmth of a hug that's like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry you feel that way. This is inner child work specifically, like, and you really can, like, there's neurons, like nerve endings here that you can, as an adult, give yourself a hug and your body responds. What a beautiful practice. So here's the tip and the clue. When those ladies asked, if we both saw this, Mel Robins say, venting is non-productive, I would say, I agree. I think it's non-productive. And what if you vented out and then at the end you looped around and you said, I can see that I'm swirling. How do I actually feel? And as adults, we can then start to build that vocabulary and give a word that helps us know how we feel. It can be a positive emotion, negative emotion. We're learning how to label emotion. If this wasn't taught to you as a child, how to label emotion, you're not alone. And what a wonderful time to learn. There's so many different charts you can print off online. Like a 8x10 sheet you can just print off, and you can start even like reading the names of emotion. This is how we slowly build vocabulary. If you have children that have emotional outbursts, or if you've been to therapy with children, you most likely receive tools, these specific tools. As adults, why don't you learn to learn to build this vocabulary by yourself? As we do so, our children start catching on, because as we are in their environment, like my children heard me say to my husband, moving has brought up an energy of fear within me. I feel afraid, and I feel lonely. And like they're learning that vocabulary through me and through the conversations that we're having within our home. If anything resonated with you, please share in your comments below. I will link a blog post to this, like this, some of this information, and happy healing on your venting journey.